الثالث من منافسات بطولة افريقيا للرياضات الالكترونية او لا الافريكان اي سبورتس تشامبيونشيب كازابلانكا 2024. حضرتوا معنا بيان سور سي اس كو سوا عند الرجال او لا عند البنات، فيكتوار كاسحه ديال المنتخب التونسي. دونك اللي غادي يدوز لا فينال كو سوا بور لي زوم ولا كو سوا بور لي فام تا هما. دونك غدا تكون لا فينال بور لي في نهار الاربعاء، لا فينال بور ليكيب ماسكولين، وغادي نشوفوا ديك الساعه شكون اللي غادي يمشي للرياض بور ريبريزونتي لو بيي ديالو. دونك لي زامي خليكم معنا Mlbb موبايل ليجندز بانغ بانغ جو موبيل. غنحيدوا من البيسي لي كونسول لي كومباني، غندوزو الموبيل دابا افيك واحد لو ماتش اللي كنا كنتسناوه كاملين. المنتخب الوطني المغربي لعب ادوميسيل كونتر المنتخب التونسي، منتخب عنيد صحيح قوي بزاف وصعيب بزاف. دونك غادي نشوفوا شكون المنتخب اللي غادي يدوز من بعد هذه المباراه هذه، وغادي نعرفوا بيان سور المنتخب اللي غادي يواجهوا، بيسكو من بعد كاين ماتش واحد اخر بين فريق المصري والفريق ديال مدغشقر. دونك ويلكم جايز once again for this third day of the first edition of the African Esports Championship Casablanca 2024. Two games have been played before. We had the chance to watch the Tunisian female team winning against the Egyptian team. Then now let's go for Mobile Legends Bang Bang with this match between Morocco national team and Tunisia national team. Who's going to be winning? Who's going to be joining maybe Egypt or Madagascar? Let's check this out right now. Casters, you're live.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the playoffs of AEC, the African Esports Championship. And after 2 days in the group stage, we are now going head-to-head into the playoffs with 4 teams looking to get that #1 spot and that #2 spot to make their way to WEC in Riyadh.
Oh man, it definitely is going to be a very, very tough playoffs round, because obviously when we're taking a look at the group stages, we already kind of expected it to be tough, right? The group stages alone. But when we, an Indonesian caster and another Indonesian caster predicts the group stages, we didn't get it completely accurate. The man on the Arabic desk, however, the coach for Morocco, Mr. Dambig, he's gotten every single prediction correct. And he even got the prediction correct for the matchups that's going to be coming up our way, Morocco versus Tunisia. I won't tell you just yet about his prediction, because maybe that comes true and maybe that spoils you of the fun, but this is truly a high-stakes matchup for both these teams. They're both really, really good at Mlbb. We saw Morocco. We haven't actually seen Tunisia, though, however, on stage, but I've heard stories about their performances in the offline matches.
For sure, and actually we had a little bit of a look at them at the African online qualifiers. There were a lot of matches granted, right? But they were actually performing really well back in the African online qualifiers, and here coming into AEC, they were also #2 in their groups, right? Which is why they're going head-to-head against the #1 in the other group, which is Morocco. So it's a #1 of the group versus the #2 in the group. That's how the seedings actually worked out for the brackets. So it is going to be exciting whether or not Tunisia has what it takes to go head-to-head against a team like Morocco, because like you mentioned, we didn't know much about Morocco before we came in, right? Morocco was one of the regions that had that slot into AEC directly because of them being the host country. Same with the Mlbb women's as well. And both teams honestly have taken us by quite a surprise. And at this point, right, Morocco is still standing at a 9-month win streak.
9 months.
They didn't drop a single match up until this point here at AEC.
Just match, not games, right? I mean, like in games at least, they have been defeated. So if we take a look at their lineup again, I guess we can kind of dissect what type of play styles they want to play here. Do they want to go for, weak side in the gold lane, play around the XP lane? Because I will have to say, for Tunisia, I'm definitely putting my eyes on Kaizo, star player on the team.
Whoa, yeah, you're right. That's actually a change in the roster. We have King Jen in EXP, supposedly. Zertik, is that how you pronounce his name? Zertik. Okay, he wasn't there in the African online qualifiers. We have Kaizo. We had Pau and we had Chaibi. So there are some changes coming through. I'm not really sure what we're supposed to be expecting. But what we do know, Tunisia has also done really well. If we check it out at iesf.gg, that you guys can actually look at as well. In group #2, they only dropped 1 match, which was against Egypt. So that roster has done great for them. But for the side of Morocco, we have Yanastis, we have Kenji, we have Albert Rostein. Super Rival, as well as Ayato. So still the main 5, I believe, no changes. No Heisenberg once again.
Yeah, I think for sure for Morocco, they don't really need to go for any changes. Again, their group stage performance speaks a lot for them already. They were able to perform so well as a team that we didn't really have a lot of data on coming into AEC. But it's safe to say that they've shocked the world. Everybody watching back at home, whether you are a Moroccan fan or not, I think you guys have been exposed to the Moroccan Mlbb style. And it's been pretty good, with Ayato being a very objective player and the rest of the team really being a little bit more bombastic in a way that they want to go for fights. They're not scared to control and contest neutral objectives even early on with a losing early game draft.
And I like that, right? And it really shows that they do have a big chance of making it all the way to WEC. Luckily for Mlbb men's, there are 2 slots. For the Mlbb women's, there's only
Is it a
one.
decider then?
Oh wait, you're right. You're right. So this is going to be the first slot given over, whether it be for Morocco or for Tunisia.
And this is already really good stuff for Tunisia, by the way. I think we're just going to be jumping straight into the drafts for game number 1. So high stakes. Let's put that up there for Morocco, for Tunisia. 1 match loss, you're out. 1 match win, and you make it to WEC 24 in Riyadh. The Moskov ban. This is brilliant, honestly, from Tunisia. We've seen Ayato completely abuse the Moskov. Not that it's broken, but technically on the hands of Ayato, it certainly can be, that word can be used. Yeah. Ayato on the Moskov has been a force to be reckoned with in the group stages.
He is called the Tornado for a reason, right? So it does make sense. We do get some respect coming over from Morocco as well. The Lunox being banned out. That's one of Yorichi's top heroes. But he's not playing today, actually.
Yeah.
So who's going to be playing in the mid lane for them, for Tunisia? Well, I guess we'll figure it out later. But the chip does get banned out as well. We saw the chip surfacing time here and there. Obviously, it's a bit mixed whether it's a good pick or a bad pick, because honestly, again, I like the way that Naisu really put it. The chip is an interesting hero that it can be a double-edged sword, right? Yep. When heroes can utilize it properly, it's a really great pick. But sometimes it can be abused in certain senses and in certain situations. But we do see the Hylos being banned here, one of the heroes that have really surfaced in the meta. And of course, the Jushin. So the Zask is still up for grabs, but the Roger takes first pick.
A lot of flex potential with the Roger pick. Morocco deciding to utilize the flex pick here to try to confuse Tunisia in the first phase. Tunisia can get another flex pick in their hands, maybe something even better as a flex pick, the Ruby together with the Zask. I think in the mid lane it gives you just a whole lot of fighting power when you get the Zask in, and it's just a really safe choice to go for. But they go for the Angela instead here very early on, and they decide to utilize the Ruby. So at least the Ruby gets utilized as a flex pick. And technically the Angela is also flex, right? You can use it in mid, you can use it in roam, so it doesn't really cover any of the other flexible positions for the Ruby. I think this is pretty good.
It's a good start, right, for the first phase. Obviously, you do want to put as many flex picks as possible in the first phase to kind of confuse your opponents. We've seen that being one of the main strategies to a lot of big teams around the world too. I do agree. I think the Angela is a great flex, but I would rather it be... What would you rather it be? Honestly, I don't like Angela mid, right? I think the wave clear is kind of lacking. I'm not a fan. Roam as well now is kind of tricky because obviously with the Angela being placed in the roam, you have a lack of tools, but maybe they're making it up for with it because of the Ruby being picked up. Yeah. That's a possibility, but the Harith now gets picked up, so it's a Roger in the jungle, and we have a Harith in the gold lane, as well as a Terizla in that EXP lane. So already so much prio now for Morocco.
Definitely, and I think for Tunisia, the easy route would be to go for Edith, right? Especially considering the Terizla has already been picked up. You need someone to try to force out the long engages, long team fights as well, especially considering you already have an Angela, a Ruby, you already are playing and relying on the sustain to force out the longer team fights. They go for the carry instead, though, and I don't know about how I feel about this carry pick, because against the Harith, it is actually one of the heroes that does okay against the Harith. You can actually dodge away from the Synchro Fission. Not something that you can actually say for most heroes, and you can actually try to out-trade the Harith. But Morocco, I would definitely say that they have gotten the win in the first phase here. They've secured a Terizla. They didn't utilize a Roger flex, but it's still a great first pick there. So that, it enables them to still utilize that flex potential in the first phase alone. They got a pretty good winning matchup. And right now, I think if the Ruby goes to XP, or if anyone goes to XP, they've already kind of secured a winning matchup for the Terizla anyways, right? Yeah. Great initiation, great damage versatility here with magic and physical. it's a complete first phase draft for Morocco.
I agree. I agree. I think this has been brilliant. I love Roger and Harith because they really make up for it in damage, right? Because
Really does.
without the Roger, sometimes you think that maybe the damage is too Magic-centric, but with the Roger now in the jungle, it really does make up for it. And in the long run as well, if it gets to the late game, you do still have that physical damage coming out from the Roger. So it's really well-rounded right now for Morocco. We do see a respect ban coming through from Tunisia. They do want to try and shut down Yanasties, so they go for the Khadira being banned out. Now, back to the point of the carry, I think one of the two choices that Tunisia had in that moment was either carry or Natan. And against the Harith, I would say that the carry is the safer pick as compared to the Natan. I mean, we're just working on data here. These are the two heroes that Kaizo has utilized in the gold lane. So maybe that's kind of the reasoning as to why the carry gets picked up in the first phase, because obviously it would be very difficult if Morocco goes ahead and bans out both the carry and the Natan.
Yeah.
And then Kaizo's left to think like, okay, am I forced on a hero that I'm not comfortable with?
That's why comfort plays a big factor, especially in the offline matches, especially when you're representing your nation in a do-or-die match. This is an elimination match, ladies and gentlemen, and man, if you win, you make it to WEC. You represent your nation in WEC, and I think for Tunisia and Morocco, that'll be the first time ever that we get to see them in the World Esports Championship here. That's going to be a Moscow ban early on, and now, again, like you mentioned, because the gold lane was already picked up early, we're not going to see the gold lane bans. We're actually going to see 2 mage bans.
Yeah.
And it's 2 burst-type mages, which is definitely interesting in my opinion, because for Morocco, if you take a look at their lineup, it definitely seems like they are lacking a bit more DPS. They have a lot of burst in the Harith, the Roger's kind of a mix, but for me to be comfortable in Morocco's draft, usually I would just expect more DPS, maybe in the mid lane. So yeah, it's definitely an opening that Morocco could utilize here, is they ban out the Minotaur and the Edith. The Edith that we kind of expected already, by the way. When you pick up the Harith, Edith is usually the answer, and they've kind of denied that answer away from Tunisia.
At this point, if they still want to work on mages right now for the next pick later on, we have 2 options here.
Okay.
I would say Valentina is definitely an option for them to pick up, because we have seen Yanasties on the Valentina, but another pick that instantly popped into my head after looking at the carry is the Farsa. Because Yanasties was top global Farsa at some point. So it is a power pick, and it does outrange the carry, hence a quote-unquote counter.
It does?
So maybe that's the 2 picks that I'm thinking about. What do you think about those?
Yeah, I think those 2 can still come up, but I think right now they're just going to wait on Tunisia's pick, which is the Grok.
Yeah.
So now they got to think about mid-prio. With the Grok already locked in by Tunisia, it means Tunisia really want to be utilizing that mid-prio together, and we've already kind of confirmed that the Angela will be going mid, Ruby XP. They have really good side lanes. It would be a shame if they lose out in mid-prio, because Morocco can truly punish Tunisia here. I think if they go for something like a Lilia, that would be pretty good too. Just try to match the Grok in terms of mid-clear, and then rotate over to the winning lanes that you are already playing with the first phase. Remember, you got 2 winning lanes and a jungle that gets so much value with the 2 winning lanes having so much more kill pressure. So added more mobility or added more tanky members in, I don't know. At this point, they can't go for Mathilda. If they're looking to just go for like a Farsa, something like a Farsa, they can go for more mobility, more sustain, but they end up going for the Lilia and the Lolita against the carry. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but it's just the carry for now. If Tunisia pick up an assassin in the jungle, it'll definitely be a bit tough for the Lolita.
Okay. So we're waiting on the last pick now for Tunisia. And at this point, right, Morocco have 3 winning lanes. I guess technically the mid lane is still 50-50, but with the Lolita and the Lilia, compared to an Angela and a Grok, you would say Lilia, right?
Yep.
Okay, so last pick here. There are still options for Tunisia.
It's a jungle.
Ooh, Pau seems to be a tank, utility type of jungler. He's picked up the Baxi and the Carmilla in the past. Maybe they've opened up the hero pool. Maybe the assassins are available because, okay, there you go, Nolan. Okay. What do you think about this Nolan?
Not the biggest of fans of the Nolan, but considering all the other assassins that have been banned out, like the Ling, it does feel like if we take a look there at his hero pool at least, Nolan is one of the easier assassins to pull off compared to Lancelot, compared to Hayabusa. So it does fit in towards Pau's hero pool here. But really, there's not a lot of people that you can actually go for in the lineup coming in from Morocco. You definitely can't kill the Lolita. The Lilia has the black shoes later on. It'll really only be either Roger or Harith. And even then, they have a lot of sustain and damage reduction to play with.
I agree. I agree. It will be difficult. It will be a challenge. But maybe that's the challenge that they're looking for, right? That's
Maybe.
the mountain that they need to climb here if they do want to secure that first slot to WEC in Riyadh later in November, I believe. So again, a high-stakes match here for the men's Mlbb. It's going to be exciting to see who moves forward. But to remind you guys at home, it is a best of 3. And for those of you who are also wondering of the other updates going on, you guys can check it out at iesf.gg. But here we go. Game number 1 in this best of 3 between the home crowd favorites, Morocco and Tunisia.
And you can hear the crowd instantly just cheer on everywhere here in Casablanca. A home turf advantage definitely playing in for Morocco here, as Tunisia will already lose out in the first wave clear. Good stun as well. If we take a look at the emblems though, it does seem like both teams are going for kind of like typically the normal emblems to go for. Nothing too special, nothing too crazy. And they're just setting up for both their junglers, not letting each of the mid lanes rotate and invade.
What we do and need to kind of think about, wait a second though, Roasting.
Oh, good stun over. Rival might actually be looking for this. Zitrick is actually very, very low. We'll still be able to escape though, gets level 2. This gives Morocco a pretty big advantage early on. Zertek's gotta really respect this. I think he needs to recall, and he does.
That actually does buy a little bit more time for Morocco here in the way that they're going to be rotating. But back to that again, right? All these spells from the side of Tunisia, they all opt for Flicker, right? So there's definitely options here for Albert Rostein to go in for a big, just ultimate, to look for a big opportunity and initiation later on after that level 4 power spike for this Lolita. But for the moment here in the first 2 minutes of the game, they are going to be rotating towards this top side.
They're really relying on the Grok to actually spot out the Lolita because, yeah, like you mentioned, you know, no Purifies on the board for Tunisia. That's the good thing about the Grok pick here up against the Lolita. It's kind of already a pseudo counter because you are a very big force when it comes to opening up the map. And usually for Albert Rostein and the Lolita, you expect the Lolita to be looking for ambushes that he might not be able to find now up against the Grok.
Okay. And now you can see that actually coming to life there in the mid lane.
Oh.
They're trading it out as best as they can, rotating as best as they can as well. And it looks like, oh, Yanasi's actually rotated towards the bottom side of the map.
Great clear. Gonna have a level advantage over Chaibi. Zertek gonna be caught penalty zone, locking him down. Kenji rotating, bringing the Hangmerge down. That's an I'm Offended used up and a Flicker as well. The Numenon Blast just charged up to zone them even more. Great pressure from Morocco. Good black shoes. Pao gonna be baited. Now the hammer swings again. Not able to find the last few shots. Pao able to dash away. Super Rival still on the turtle. It's a big win for Morocco early on.
It's huge, right? They get the momentum, they get the neutral objective as well. The fact that they were able to zone out Tunisia there was amazing. And again, it goes back to the drafts. The fact that you have a Lilia versus an Angela in the mid lane, you already have that base magical damage that you can work with in the first few minutes. Whereas, I guess the only thing that the Angela can work with here is the fact that she can help in sustain, but that itself requires that level 4, which she now just gets. So, was that a take?
No, I mean, it was just a secure from Pao, but the fact that Pao is level in terms of farm with the Roger is definitely concerning, and Roger, Super Rival, just got a level lead now, despite Pao already invading into the enemy jungle. Items-wise, though, this is an aggressive build for the Terizla for Kenji. Usually you go Queen's Wings, this time he doesn't want to go Queen's Wings, he wants to go for the War Axe first. Chaibi already forced to Flicker out.
Okay. 3 minutes in, we do see a little bit of a gold lead here for Morocco. They're controlling as best as they can, but luckily for Pao, right? Luckily for him, he is still going to be able to get his orange buff. So when it comes down to this, we'll see whether or not they're going to utilize this orange buff to look for a gank perhaps on the map, to look for a trade somehow, to even the score a little, right? Because for the most part, Morocco has still been able to take control.
The damage control has been impressive, though, from Tunisia. The fact that they lost out on the first neutral objectives, the fact that, you know, they had to all recall, and now Pao has actually made a turnaround on the Nolan, now being a level ahead of Super Rival. Great pathing so far. He decides to go for the greedy build, which is the Sky Piercer first item. Despite losing out on the first neutral objective, they're confident to go for even more fights. Kenji ganking the bottom lane. This is the beauty of the Terizla pick. You're never the weak side.
They're looking for trades again, right? They're trying to stay active on the map. A Sky Piercer again is very interesting in the way that it's a double-edged sword too, right? If you can get the advantage, it's great.
It's obviously a gamble.
It is a big gamble. That's why it's a double-edged sword. But if you can get those stacks and if you can utilize it properly, minimizing the deaths, then obviously they will find a benefit out of it. But now both of these teams are going to start dancing around this mutual objective, and here we go.
Mlbb use up penalty zone though from Kenji. Now blast charge up as well. The wild charge cancels it, but Kenji has done enough damage. Pao gonna be forced back. Kaizo taken down by the chrono dash. King Jen caught alone, forced to just run back with the flicker. That's a massive win for Morocco if the first turtle wasn't already a win.
3-0 traded for nothing, right? And Morocco, they're going to be picking up that second turtle of the game. And look at the space that it immediately gave them. Super Rival now going to be able to take out this the orange buff rather, from Pao. And so the level lead that Pao had earlier on has actually been negated now. It looks like Super Rival is going to get that level 9 first. There's definitely a little bit more that Tunisia can work with for the moment because the corrosion site has been built by Kaizo. She needs a little bit more time here. The photo does get built in for Chaibi though, but look at that damage. Oh no, Pao!
Definitely not having a good time here despite having a little bit of the healing coming down from Chaibi. It's definitely not enough to deal with the burst. Not just yet, and it seems there's another contender in town here. Super Rival picking up the Sky Piercer's second item to the Wind Talker. Zertek to get a whole lot of damage in the mid lane and gets choked down by the Luminon Blast. The hard guard gets used up. Yanasi's forced back with the black shoes, and Pao can only just watch as they disengage.
Luckily, there was no neutral objective though, right? Because, I mean, forcing that hard guard is already a very expensive ultimate. I think Tunisia direly needs it to be able to get a little bit more in advantage in these team fights. So they do still have a little bit more time to kind of reassess things, but it looks like no, Morocco's not giving them time.
Good stun, Kenji! Oh my god, not just swinging the hammer, dropping the big hammer on Pao's face. A good stun over to Kaizo again. Zertik this time is there to provide some backup, and that's going to be a first turret take for Morocco up top, tier 1. No trades on the board. Great manipulation on the wave. Super Rival now in the mid lane. They're going to go for the siege again, putting some pressure down on the Chaibi and then rotating into the enemy jungle. This should actually put him in a very good spot to just keep that level lead on Pao.
Is it just me, or have the rotations from Morocco been very clean?
It really has been clean. The rotations everywhere, up top as well. They've just been able to catch Tunisia when they least expect them to.
Every single time, like they're not giving a spare moment for Tunisia to think about their next game plan, because again, they're being invaded over and over and over, and this is what you get when you have 3 winning lanes.
King Jen trying to hover over the turtle, but there's no way you can go to steal. Not when Pao is actually just looking to mirror around in the enemy jungle. He does get the purple buff, which is damage control. Again, Tunisia early on, what made them look very impressive is the fact that they are able to do that damage control, right? Whenever the enemy team has an advantage, they will look to go and mirror and trade on the other side of the map. But at this point, the lead might be a bit too big for them to just constantly mirror. They gotta start looking for picks somewhere in the map.
It's really hard. I mean, oh, it might be this.
Exactly. Super Rival though jumping in just like that. They look for a pick. They find it in the mid lane. Kenji! Penalty zone to stop them from retreating. Forcing out a flicker at least from Chaibi. And that is a good resource burnt out. Considering that now they will be able to get a tier 1 in the mid lane. They dealt a lot of damage up top. Numenon Blast to get the assassination on the Angela. They baited the flicker earlier, so Albert Rothstein can do that.
He saw the opportunity and he took it, man. I mean, that's a roamer for you. But of course, that was supposed to be the good trade coming in from Tunisia, right? The fact that they're able to shut down Super Rival. But you know, Albert, he just had to go in there, being the tricky man that he is.
Being the closest man to Albert Einstein.
Yep.
At least in terms of names, right?
I mean, he is known to be the smartest one. That's why his name is Albert Rothstein.
He's known to be smart, but he's also known to be flashy. Because I believe his nickname is Rolex, right?
Yes.
They call him Rolex. Let's see if he can be as flashy as a Rolex as he walks up. Purple buff stolen. Pow! Oh no, this is looking bleak. No purple buff for him, and Kenji is just watching Tunisia as they disengage, as they retreat back to their tier 2.
They're not stopping here. Zertik trying his best to zone out the members, trying to hold on for dear life, but unfortunately that tower is still going to crash and fall. But meanwhile, all this is happening. Meanwhile, amidst all the chaos, Pao is still trying his best, right? He was 2 levels behind earlier on. Now he's just a level behind, and you can see him being very active on the map, looking for the camps when he can. clearing as much as he can as well, for the hopes that at a certain point, when all these teams start corralling for the Lord, he can look for a cheeky steal. I guess not now, though.
No, not when you're this far behind. That's a 2-level diff for Super Rival ahead. And just based on control as well, Morocco definitely have much more of an advantage there, controlling the neutral objective, even in team fights. Is it a problem for Tunisia? If they decide to go and fight with Zyrtec, because Zyrtec is mainly, more of an initiator and he is a kite back kind of roamer, it'll be difficult for them. So Zyrtec's already placed in a position where he has to react on a Grok. The sustain's not there just yet, the damage not there just yet. So at this point, it's a waiting game for Tunisia, and for Morocco, they're just going to keep on pushing the pace.
What about King Jen, though? King Jen on the Ruby. Is it possible for him to look for an opening? He has Thunderbelt and the Queen's Wings.
I don't think so. Not just yet. I think there's a bit too much damage coming in from Morocco. You can already see that as well. Powell. Just the burst down of the Anasties doesn't even feel like a burst down. Lilia feels like a tank here up against the Nolan that usually up against the Lilia would burst her down and force the Black Shoes as the only way to escape. That was just more of a, I need more HP kind of Black Shoes.
Did you get a hint as to her itemization?
Did not actually get to see it, but I did see a Super Rival has that Sky Piercer. Pao does too, and hey, if we take a look at the kills, so far the gamble hasn't paid off for both junglers. They have no stacks.
Okay, we'll see. Looks like, again, Morocco still pushing the tempo. And back on Nasties, right, on the Lilia. Honestly, we usually see two different shades of Lilia, right? Sometimes Lilias go Lethal Ignition, and sometimes they go Impure Rage.
Impure Rage, yep.
So the fact that he decided to go Impure Rage, that spam ability, the ability for him to continuously threaten the frontliners as well from Tunisia, I mean, assuming... Oh, wait a second.
Arm Nature by Zyrtec. Used up already, forced to use the Wild Charge defensively. Yanasti still doing a lot of damage, and Moonlight Blast charged it with a Flicker. Finding King Jen under the turret there, penalty zone, missing out. King Jen unable to get in range to get I'm offended now. Pao tries to go for the Fracture, Yanasties again. With Pao being so far behind, he can't even burst Yanasties down, and he'll always have time to pop in the Black Shoes.
But luckily, there were no casualties, right?
No casualties.
It's a start, it's a start. Oh, okay, Yanasties going in for Divine Glaive already.
12-minute Divine Glaive.
Because I don't think Yanasties went Glowing Wand,
no.
Right? I don't see the burn effects coming through. We didn't get a proper look at the items earlier on. So he's going for more damage.
Ice Queen 1 and the Enchanted Talisman.
Ah, okay. Interesting, because I would have thought that going against the Grok, you would go for a little bit more of that, DOT.
Especially with the Ruby
wand.
and the Angela.
Exactly.
With the NOD passive, the X-NOD passive.
They don't even need it.
No, it doesn't seem like they do. It seems they only have one Dominance ISO in the team, so they're really confident that Kenji's going to be there in the team fights every single time. I think Tunisia, if they can actually, take a look at that, if they do notice the fact that only Kenji has it on his eyes, they can try to go for a split in the bottom lane. Pao! He's going to lose out against Kenji. And maybe now this is why Morocco don't care about the anti-regions. They're just so far ahead. They're almost 10,000 gold ahead. Morocco 5-1 in kills, but objectively, my lord, they are stomping Tunisia.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so tough for Tunisia. What do they do? Malefic Roar now picked up for Super Rival, so amidst all that damage he was already outputting earlier on, he gets the Malefic Roar to boot, a little bit more penetration, so even if Tunisia catch up on that physical defense... Oh, wait a second, there you go.
Again, able to react to it. Wild Charge coming down as well, but that's the Wild Charge all alone, and the Moonlight Blast gets charged in. Good flicker forward to zone them away from the base turret. Kaizo flickers out of the penalty zone, but it still does connect onto two. Super Rivals there too. The base is wide open. Morocco one step closer to qualifying to WEC 24.
All right, how many minutes was that? Do you remember the timers there? I hope we get to take a look at that earlier on, because I want to know if Dom Big's right.
That was like a 13-minute game.
13.
Around 13, 14.
Okay.
So, not really.
Are we gonna tell them what he said? Just the minute, the duration?
He said 15. So close.
He did not say 15.
He said 15 and 20.
He said 10, no?
Oh, wait.
I said 14, 15.
That was your prediction. So you were right. He said 10. It could have been a 10-minute game if they ended with the first Lord, but unfortunately, Tunisia were good. We're good at damage control, and that's what we saw at least early on, but then they completely lost it in the second turtle fight.
I agree. It was really difficult. I mean, at a certain point, POW was 2-3 levels below. So even if they wanted to look for a contest on the neutral objectives, they couldn't. And unfortunately, as they were looking for other reasons or other ways to kind of level out the playing field, because they lost so many neutral objectives in the side lanes, it was also very difficult. And then we saw that, cocky play coming in from Albert Rostein. But man, that was flashy, and we love to see it.
We certainly do love to see it. I think the Moroccan crowd enjoyed that as well here in Casablanca. Man, I think this is the most packed we've seen the arena here for the AEC, and it is for sure a game for Morocco, and I think this was when the crowd cheered the loudest. Actually, no, that was the game-ending moment, but still, a 1v2 moment in the bottom lane, an assassin losing out completely, and again, Yanasti is just able to do nasty things, baiting out the fracture. I think he took more damage in this fight than Kenji.
Yeah.
Than Roasty.
Because, who else would POW target? Right? I mean, who do you go for? Do you go for Super Rival? Do you go for the Harith? Do you go for the Lilia? Do you go for Yanastis? It was so difficult. There you go. 13 minutes and 54 seconds.
Yep. 13 to 14. So perfect prediction from UA Turna in terms of the timing. You're great with the duration there. 13:54. It's a 10,000 gold lead by the end of it, by the way. Man. This didn't look like a 10,000 gold lead kind of game. If we just took a look at the kills, right? It was 5-1 for the longest time. But Morocco just understand the fundamentals of the game so well. They know when to rotate, how to rotate. And Rostein, Albert Rostein, very early on, you saw the healing boots.
Maybe we should say Albert Rostein, right?
Rostein?
Albert Einstein?
That's true.
Right?
Albert Einstein, Albert Rostein.
There you go.
Albert Rostein.
Like Rolex Einstein, right?
Rolex Einstein.
Albert Rostein.
Albert Rostein.
There
He's certainly a genius with his itemization. With the Flask of the Oasis and the Oracle.
That's what I really wanted to ask, right? Lolita, Flask of the Oasis.
Yeah, this is the new meta for Lolita. What is not the new meta is the Endless Battle. I don't know where that came from, Mr. Albert Rostein.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's gone on the stage. Okay.
I mean, I think it is right. I think he did go for that, but 10,000 gold lead. You were already ahead by so much. Let's talk a little bit more about the Queen's Wings, the Flask of the Oasis, and the Oracle, right? Because even at MSC, if we take a look at the Lolitas, they are all building this build. They're all going for this build. And I actually had to talk to a good friend of mine, LaFell, who plays Lolita. He actually mains it. And yeah, this is just how the new Lolita builds. It's just better.
So what do you get from the Queen's Wings? I mean, the Blood Wings.
The Blood Wings just gets you additional shielding. And from your passive, you actually also get shielding.
I think we'll save that for later.
Okay.
Sure. Let's build the suspense. Let's keep the viewers, wondering.
You guys?
All right, because we are going to go on a short break before we get to game number 2. So we'll see you right after between Morocco and Tunisia. See you later, guys.
Just 5 minutes.
Just 5 minutes?
10?
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 2 in our first best of 3 of the series, where it's still Morocco versus Tunisia, and Morocco picking up that first game and that first point.
It was a crazy first game to start things off, right? We expected the match to be much closer than it was, but Team Morocco, I guess, with the Moroccan magic in the air here in Casablanca, we're able to get it done in 13 minutes and 54 seconds. So we'll see if the tides actually change, and maybe we get to see Tunisia show a bit of magic themselves here by equalizing in game number 2, giving us a full best of 3. Because it does feel like, at least for the men's that has been streamed, the matches, we have not seen a single full best of 3 series.
Yeah, me too. Even for the Mlbb women's, it's all been 2-0s. Well,
we need
for the
one,
ones that are streamed as well.
We need one. Come on. I mean, Tunisia.
This is the time.
This is the time, right?
We're in the playoffs.
Give the crowd a show. Actually, you know what? The crowd will probably want Morocco to win too.
Yeah,
right?
but like, can you imagine the suspense building
Exactly.
if Tunisia picks up game number 2? I guess we'll see. And because everything does start from the drafts, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go straight into it. We have a Ling being banned out by Tunisia this time around. And again, the Lunox still respected by Morocco. Big respect from Morocco, even though that they won in a, I would say, convincing fashion.
I think it really is just set up for the Harith, right? Because obviously, I mean, if we're talking about just individual laning, for the Harith, you have a very good time. But the Lunox is still a way to counter the Harith if we get to the later stage of the game, or if the Lunox gets to his her item power spikes. Still the same bans, though, despite blue side now being on the hands of Tunisia. Chip, Lunox, still Ling, and Juicin. It does seem like Tunisia will be sticking to their game plan despite losing in game number 1. It's also the Moscow, so nothing changing at all for Tunisia.
Yeah, I think the last ban that we saw in game number 1 was the Hylos, right? Do Morocco want to do that again, or do they want to go for something a little bit more prio? I mean, they understand that they don't have first pick. They understand and understood the value that the Roger had in their own gameplay in game number 1, so they are going to be banning it out away, understanding that Tunisia has first pick. So now Tunisia, Zask honestly is still an option for them to pick up, but they go straight for the Hylos. So the Hylos opened up, immediately the Hylos being picked up as well. I guess the Hylos has surfaced a lot in the meta, right? I think back at SBS, I had a little bit of a small debate with the other casters about whether or not this pick is meta or not. I said situational. I understand the changes now with the Thunderbelt changes and as well as the Clock of Destiny being really great value towards the Hylos. But what do you think? Do you think it's meta or conditional or nah?
I'd say for the most part it is more, situational to pick up the Hylos. That's why we see it mostly in the second phase. But I think a friend of mine, Mr. Fried Horse is his new name now. It's no longer Fried Chicken. He would beg to differ.
Did he actually change his name?
In-game, at least. I don't think he actually changed his official name because it's still Fried Chicken. But shout out to Fried Chicken out there because he's been preaching about the horse since even before any of the pro players utilized it. I think even in MSC, he was already preaching about the horse in his restream. So the horse does well. Okay, I don't even know if we can call him a horse. He's more like a centaur with a unicorn horn. So
yeah,
we struggle figuring out what the Hylos is, but it's still a pretty good pick in my opinion.
And as EXP?
Exactly.
Or?
For me, it's as EXP. But what's great about it, that we saw as well in our region, is the fact that the Hylos can be a good flex pick. You can go to the XP, you can go to the roam, and in some cases, it can also go to the jungle. We've seen that back in the day, if you remember. Shout outs to Wise.
That was so long ago, though. Is it still possible to go Hylos jungle?
I personally haven't seen it. The clear is definitely not maybe as good as all the other assassin jungles that we are seeing in the meta, but it can still work. Given the right, picks, I think given the right composition, it can still work. The Terizla and Harith is a good way to already step or enable that, by the way.
Are we going to be seeing a Hylos in the jungle? I mean, Tunisia, they have picked just niche things in the past, so it's still a possibility that they can go for. But Hayabusa, Ruby, and Lilia picked up by Morocco. There was an emote there. Oh, man.
They went on the Assassin up against a very tanky lineup. I mean, I think it's the same problem as that we saw for Nolan earlier in Game 1. Who's the Hayabusa going to try to assassinate? Because even the Harith, probably the most vulnerable member out of the 3 that we see in the first phase, is still quite sustainable, especially when you use the Zaman Force. And if the Hylos does go to the jungle, I think the Hayabusa might actually have a tough time. They're going to have to pick up something like a carry in the second phase.
And I think they understand this, right? They know the risk. So the carry has been banned out by Tunisia. They need somebody to be able to burn through all that beefy front lines that Tunisia now have, and Morocco also understand that if Tunisia pick up something like the Zask in the mid lane, it's GG, right? It'll be very difficult for them to find the proper, I would say, proper target. And that's why maybe the Angela was also banned out as well, right? Angela does cause a lot of miscalculations, especially against assassins. So imagine with all that, plus an Angela in the mix.
And now they banned the Claude too, and that probably would be the best way to actually go up against this composition. If you don't really have the Moskov...
So what's the answer?
I'd honestly say if you're going up against this kind of dive, you can go for Melissa. You know, it is one of my favorite picks as well. It's a way to counter the dive that's coming in because the Hylos can't actually get through the go-away.
It's good against Harith.
And it's amazing against the Harith. So, you know, kill 2 birds with 1 stone with the Melissa pick, but the safe choice will definitely be probably like Natan.
Yeah, that's probably what he could be going for. I'm taking a look at Morocco right now, and he's used the Claude, Harith, and the Moskov in the past, and all 3 of them are not on the table at the moment. So,
Ayato.
And it looks like they are taking their dear time as well, right? So the Natan does get picked up here. Obviously, it will require a little bit more time. But luckily, I would say they have the Lilia in the mid lane, right? Maybe it will help in rotations. Maybe it can help buy some time for the Natan to get to that power spike. Meanwhile, now the last 2 picks in from Tunisia. What are we expecting here? Do they double down on the tankiness, just the regen capacity of their composition right now?
Yeah, at this point, I feel like just get a solid mid laner, you know, someone that can deal a lot of damage, some burst as well. And if you do decide to put the Hylos in the jungle, go for the Lolita. It's a great way to go up against the Natan. And if that's the case, I think Morocco will definitely struggle in this game, having no one that can really melt down any of the frontliners coming in from Tunisia while they have a lot of early game burst themselves. But I think at this point, they can still also just go for a damage dealer in the jungle. And they go for the Alpha, which is a good choice, a great choice to go for here. I actually thought that with the Terizla Hylos picked up early, that Morocco would be the ones to pick up the Alpha, but it gets left open, and this is a scary draft from Tunisia. I'm definitely, you know, leaning over to the side of Tunisia for game 2.
Could Morocco pick up an X-Borg here? Do you think it could work?
Yes, they
you know,
could.
flex Ruby into the roam, pick up an X-Borg for that EXP lane. Technically, it can go head-to-head against a Terizla, and in the grand scheme of things in these particular team fights, the X-Borg does hold value against heroes like what we're seeing from Tunisia, but they don't. Ruby EXP, and they go for Tigreal in the roaming position.
Not a big fan of the Tigreal pick here for Morocco. I mean, the vulnerable targets will be going for Purify for sure, and that's the Harith. The Vixana is going to be very far back in the team fight, so I'm not even sure if they want to go for the Vixana, right? And even if you get all these frontliners comboed in together, as long as the Vixana hits the Terrify or the Eternal Guard, that's the cancel on the Implosion instantly.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. So I understood the value because initially I saw the Hayabusa and I was thinking maybe something like the Aurora if you want to be a little bit more safe since the Zask was already banned, the Jushin was also already banned. But then they pick up the Vexana. I thought the Aurora would be a little bit more formidable in the mid lane, right? Not a good target for the Hayabusa, but in the grand scheme of things, like you mentioned, the Vexana is a good pick. I have a good feeling about Tunisia this time around.
Same. I mean, hey, we haven't gotten a single full 3-game series, and I really hope it is today because what a way to start the playoffs if we get a first full 3-game series in our first match of the playoffs.
So let's go straight into the land of dawn. Ladies and gentlemen, Tunisia versus Morocco for game number 2. Can Morocco look for a 2-0, pave their way to WEC, or can Tunisia force a game number 3?
This is an aggressive alpha. Pao's actually going to go for the killing spree here, so really relying on these team fights going towards Tunisia's side. And I'd understand for at least this composition. They have a Terizla, they have the winning lane set up that Morocco got earlier in game number 1. So the fact that they already have so much pressure together with such a fast clearing and strong fighter in Alpha, that killing spree could actually make the game go even faster than what we expect for Tunisia.
I mean, they are putting the pressure here. We can see it on screen. But back to the emblems, right? I was wondering, Super Rival, Hayabusa, Lethal Ignition. We've seen some different flavors of the Hayabusa. Sometimes they go Warcry as well. Why Lethal Ignition here?
That's a good question, because I feel like that's a question I would ask if you hadn't already asked it before. I think the Warcry definitely gives you a bit more value, especially up against these tanky members over the Lethal Ignition. But I'm guessing at this point, his targeting or his way to go for members is just on the Harith and just on the Vexana. And with the Lethal Ignition, yes, you do have a better time at dealing with the squishies. So if he is able to get that game plan under his belt early on by killing the Harith, shutting down the Harith or the Vexana, the Lethal Ignition will play a pretty good role in this game to give them the snowball.
Well, earlier on, Super Rival was spending a lot of time in this gold lane, right? I think he was waiting for the Harith to look for a pick.
Great
Obviously, not so good for Morocco because that actually bought them a little bit more time to jungle a lot faster. And you can even see, right, the Alpha already on the way to the next neutral objective. So that's definitely some time burnt out from Morocco.
Albert Rostein also doesn't really have the implosion. Eternal Guard in the penalty zone locks them down. This might be a bad team, but to go for the glorious pathway gets placed down, but it only gives King Gen more ways to dive them. 1-0 with a turtle. Kenji forced back to recall under the tier 1.
Great setup, amazing setup now from Tunisia. Amazing fight back from game number 1, right? We thought that Morocco had a really good time in game number 1. We thought that it might have been one-sided throughout the entirety of the series, but we can see Tunisia fighting back, and they are doing it with much ease at this moment, right? From earlier on, Super Rival, he was a level below, still is, so he really needs to catch up on those rotations, catch up on those jungle creeps to find a way back into this game, because Tunisia now leading with 1K.
First turtle, no problem. The 1,000 gold lead even here is still no problem for Morocco, because Morocco still have a secondary game plan. When the neutral objectives, when the snowball doesn't happen in the early game, they can always play for Ayato, who is on a Natan, by the way. The problem is Tunisia will have a massive lead by the second turtle, and Morocco will just have to look for trades across the map. It's basically what we see in Indo a lot, you know, protect Mr. President. Natan is Mr. President at this moment. They got to play for Ayato.
And luckily he hasn't been taken out, right? So that game plan is still intact for the most part. Tunisia, though, I'm wondering what they need to do. Do they need to close this as soon as possible? Is the ticking time bomb on them this time around?
Yeah, it's a ticking time bomb, definitely, you know. Morocco's Natan, Ayato, is definitely going to be a very big threat in the later stage of the game. So Tunisia does have to try to, you know, push the pace a bit, but in the early to mid, just play their game. Don't get too pressured by the Natan, right? Because the timer, it's still quite long, especially now in the meta, for the Natan to actually get ahead. Tidy will be engaged on. Good shadow kill over to the back line, but it's going to be dispersed amongst the two members. Powell taking a bit of damage. There's Certic rotating away with the glorious pathway. Now going to the Anasties, who doesn't have the black shoes. Great implosion into the charge, but it gets cancelled by the Terrify. Albert Rostein unable to get the play that would give Morocco some stability.
You were talking about that as well, right? You were talking about picking up a Tigreal against the Vexana, the challenges and the obstacles that you're going to be facing, and we actually see that come into play there for Albert. Very difficult for him to pick that up. Luckily, we do see that Super Rifle was still able to get that purple buff. And back to the timers of Ayato. Morocco, you know, I would expect that Kaizo would bully Ayato a little bit more. So the fact that he hasn't, and the fact that Ayato has still been farming on par with a Harith, maybe the timers can come a lot quicker, right? We've seen 3 items, Natan, 11 minutes, 12 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's possible to get to those item power spikes at the 12th minute of the game, but then they're going to have to try to really give or relieve a lot of the pressure from the top side of the map, and that's already what we are seeing from Albert Rostein. They're trying to give the gold buff away, but hey, Tunisia, they know better than to give that away to a Natan. I think for Tunisia, the main goal has to be to shut the Natan down now. Because if they don't get rid of the Natan early, it's going to come back to bite them early on, though. Hey,
yeah.
We saw a lot of damage placed down up top. The Ruby has rotated up as well. Morocco already, you know, moving into that protect Mr. President strategy. But it's still going to be tough at this point of the game.
Let's see. Okay, the Natan is only 200 gold behind the Harith right now. So, see, that was the amount of bullying that I would have expected a little earlier.
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be how Tunisia win it. But it looks like they are rotating towards the top side, right? They understand the urgency. And here we go.
Good shove back again. Now with the Spear of Alpha, able to connect. The implosion gets 2. Ayato's dealing a whole lot of damage. Gets 1 kill, but the blink is not there. Kaizo still in the back line dealing a whole lot of damage. That's a double kill over Kaizo with a Chrono Dash. Kenji unable to get him. And it'll be a big win for Tunisia. In the bottom lane, a bit of a trade. as Super Rival is able to shove the wave back, but King Gen has been busy rotating from bot to mid to back to bot lane to clear out the waves.
1-for-2 trade as a general whole. Looks like Super Rival was trying to get, a sneaky tower under the nose of Tunisia earlier on, but King Gen was able to sniff that out. And now Morocco, they're the ones working on the back foot, right? They're the one that's lost the tower in the top side. It's going to be interesting to see how both of these teams kind of collapse on this next neutral objective and whether or not Ayato will be participating. Because I think he's one item in?
Yeah, Feather of Heaven. That's the only item he has at this point of the game. And for Ayato, I feel like in the last skirmish, he should have been mirroring some of the movements coming in from Tunisia. They decided to fully react to Tunisia's movements around the map, and he decided to go up top, where, by the way, in the bottom lane, he would have had a great time just farming up against the Terizla, who really can't provide that much kill threat towards him. To arrive on the mid lane, Shadow Kill could flicker out by Chibi. Great timing there to escape Super Rival, though. As deadly as ever, what happened? Nasties on the Lillian decides to dive, gets the black shoes, and you can hear the crowd here in Casablanca, Morocco erupt again.
He's like, not today. That was a great outplay, but not today. Let me finish things off for my teammate. Let me finish that off for Super Rival. Nasties really is nasty.
It's in the name. That's what he's saying, definitely, to his opponents as he does nasty things. Pao, actually, despite going for the killing spree, I thought he would go for a bit more of an aggressive build. Turns out, nope, still the Queen's Wing, still the normal, a disciplined build, I would say, for the Alpha, competitive build. Glorious Pathway, used up already. Pao actually can rotate over as well, has the Spear of Alpha, decides against it though, knows there are a lot of ways that he can get punished.
What is he up to? Super Rival? Oh, okay, he just wants to clear the lanes. King Gen is there though, 1v1.
Yeah, Super Rival should be able to do this. Gets the Quad Shadow out, doesn't want to use the retreat, knows that he needs it for the purple buff, but it does seem like Tunisia is actually late to react on that maneuver from Morocco. Double Queen's Wing setup now. It's Pao and King Gen who have the Queen's Wings.
That's gonna be something that Morocco need to think about.
Yeah.
As there are 15 seconds left on the clock for that Lord to spawn. A 5v5 situation with that much sustainability and durability. I don't know. Ayato, there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders now.
Whoa, they're actually gonna go on to Xerxes all alone here. Still has the Glorious Pathway, does decide to pop it in, baits out the Eternal Guard. Hey, those are two big resources that Morocco have already burnt out of them. Ayato was nowhere near, a position to actually go for the fight, though. I would definitely recommend against going towards the contest here, but hey, Morocco seem confident.
They're going for it. Look at that Shadow Kill.
Taking a whole lot of damage. Oh, there's a Bond Force still there. He is able to survive. Albert Raustein with the dive in the back and the implosion. A tank going for the assassination. Pao now caught. Yanasti is able to back away again. They baited out the resources. Super Rival on the Lord. Pao still able to go for the steal. Great Terrify from Chibi to set that up. Albert Raustein, despite the big play he made, he is still going to be punished, and Tunisia are able to respond to that massive play from Morocco.
A 2-for-1 trade, but Tunisia, they're the ones that are able to pick up that Lord. There's so many things to unpack there. Like, that was a really great moment coming in from Albert with the implosion to just really seal the deal for them. But it went so badly after. What happened?
Oh man, I mean, it was great up until that very point, but Super Rival definitely didn't respect Tunisia's CC enough. I think he also didn't respect the fact that Pao can go for the retreat. It wasn't like it's just a, it wasn't a 2-level lead, it wasn't a 3-level lead. It was probably just 1, but I think during the Lord Steal, it was them being even on levels. So Pao was already 50-50. The fact that Chibi got the Terrify means that it was just Nasty, and Nasty is able to pop into black shoes. They're actually fighting under the turret without minions. Nasty's gonna be caught in the penalty zone, but is still able to survive. A Super Rival gets rid of Chibi and jumps back with a Quad Shadow. Tunisia losing control despite having the Lord. They were too greedy for the mid turret.
Honestly, that was just so well played, though, was it not? I mean, I guess it was in Morocco's favor, the fact that that team fight was really split up. Penalty zone into the back line to kind of deal with Yanasties, but unfortunately, in the grand scheme of things, it didn't work out the way that they planned. And if we take a look at the items here,
Those are the timers they turn. Those are some scary items.
Are we on the way Holy Crystal?
We're on the way to the Holy Crystal. That is the ticking time bomb that Tunisia have been trying to defuse all this time. And unfortunately, due to Morocco's chaotic nature of taking on team fights, they've been able to stay in the chaos, thrive in the chaos, to give Ayato enough time to scale up. You called this, 11 to 12 minutes. The Holy Crystal should be built up, and I think those are pretty accurate timers now, looking at those items. He's one little component away, and then to a full Holy Crystal that will definitely give Tunisia problems.
See, what I'm curious about are the items from Tunisia, right? Because technically, if he does get the Holy Crystal, but there are a lot of magic defense items being built up, wouldn't he require maybe the Divine Glaive first, as compared to the Holy Crystal to get that power spike?
Yes, if Morocco's pure only soul damage is Natan. But the thing is, they have the Lilia, yeah, magic damage as well, and then we have Super Rival on the Hayabusa, so they also have a lot of damage coming in from physical. Even if we take a look at Kenji, he's not building damage, but the fact that, Ruby does a whole lot of damage with just his base stats is also pretty scary. You can see that damage piling on, though. Powell, he has a Queen's Wings, and he's taken that low just from the glooms. Ayato did not decide to use the Entropy. That was without Ayato.
That was insane damage. The Lily is only on Glowing Wand, Enchanted Talisman, and Ice Queen's Wand. So there's no Divine Glaive, there's no nothing.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's the power of the Lily, I guess, when you're clumped up in certain areas, when she can utilize that AoE damage. You really do feel it, especially as frontliners.
Great item, by the way, picked up from Powell there. He bought the Winter Crown. He knows that, he's been taking a whole lot of damage. Might as well get the Winter Crown to delay some of these fights and to play within the window of the Entropy being in cooldown. Playing around the Lord now. Tunisia having more control. Yanasti's trying to look for poke, but he is losing a whole lot of that mana. Super Rival jumping to the back line now, jumping with the Shadow Kill as well. Kaizo gonna be taking low. Retribution still on point for Powell. Does he get the Winter Crown just in time? Albert Raustein able to get the two members knocked up. Flickers back to safety, but Zertik is right there. Good knockups coming down. Super Rival able to kite away. Ayato not dealing enough damage. Morocco losing out in the team fight, losing out in the neutral. Objective take. And Tunisia, they have a window again to defuse that ticking time bomb in the Natan.
Again, the same story again. Oh, wait.
Good penalty zone with the Purified there. Now with the Entropy as well. Still, not enough damage to really push them back. But he is able to defend the base turret, at least clearing out the ways for now.
Okay, that does buy them a little bit more time. But, 14 seconds for Super Rival to come back up. The Lord is already marching. It really depends now. Do Tunisia, are they able to manipulate these waves properly? It doesn't look like the setup has been done as well. The Lord, see, the top lane is already crashing. There is still opportunities now for Morocco to defend this. They do still have the high ground with the Lilia, so that's something that they can count on, as well as Ayato on the Natan.
And now they're taking all the tier 2s, but seriously, I think for them, the main objective to be looking for is a base turret at this point of the game. The Eternal Guard will be used up. Yanasi still has the black shoes and gets the outplay on Tybee as well. Meanwhile, Albert Raustein is able to deal with Powell in the mid lane. Somehow, again, Morocco pull off a miraculous win in a chaotic skirmish.
What's happening? How did that happen?
Moroccan magic in Casablanca. That's what's happening.
That's it. It's Moroccan magic, ladies and gentlemen. That should have been a really great push for Tunisia with the Lord in the bottom side, distracting. I thought maybe they wanted to go in for the mid lane, but how did Albert Raustein get it? I'm assuming implosion under turret?
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming as well.
Powell?
But it had to have come through a mistake from Powell because Albert Raustein does not have the flicker. It was just a reactive implosion.
Okay, I mean, I hope we get to see the highlights later on, maybe post-game, to see what happened on the other lanes, how they lost to, but that's the perfect moment now for Morocco to go for a reset, right? It's still a 4K gold lead for Tunisia, but Morocco, they are slowly building back up, and look at that damage already. Wait a second.
Genji taking a whole lot of that damage right now, stunned up as well. Eternal Guard with the Curse Blast connecting there. Good Purify out by Kaizo with the Zaman Force placed down. But look at the knockouts coming down. Ayato! This Massive still able to escape with the Entropy. Super Rival on it still is popping the Shadow Kill. Zertik gonna be taken low. Still with the Shadow Kill on top of them. Yanasti is dealing a whole lot of damage. Ayato needs the Entropy to come back again. They've won in this team fight despite losing 2 members. Look at the resources. Look at the HP bars. Super Rival with the Quad Shadow. I don't think you can go for King Gen. Not him. Anyone except King Gen.
In that team fight again, right? Yanasti still being that #1 force of damage coming through for Morocco. And it was just so unfortunate that in the middle of that team fight for Tunisia, that Yanasis picked up the Divine Glaive, right? So that damage doubled by that point. And now a complete reset. Both of these teams gonna go around the neutral objective once again with the Lord. Super Rival already got the purple buff and he's now in position to look for another steal. So far,
Super Rival?
Poe has been
Rival?
What?
The assassination in the mid lane with the shadow kill. They might have turned it around. Ayato with entropy. Now great impulsion. Super Rival with the steal. Pow chain CC'd. This is a full pendulum swing. The magic of Morocco as Kaizo tries to deal a bit more of magic himself, but will not have the Zaman Force to continue the onslaught of damage. Morocco turned the tides completely around.
Absolutely. They played that so well. I would have thought that they would want to go for the same, strategy from Morocco, but no. Super Rival found a great opportunity to make things a 4v5. The fact that they were able to pick up JB, and to make it even worse, that Lord Steal. It's not quantity, it's quality, bro. He's lost most of the retribution so far.
All of the retribution.
But when it came down to it, when it counts, he's able to pick it up.
3 turtles and 2 lords. He decides to pick up the 3rd one here, and it is definitely the biggest lord here, as the lord does scale way more compared to the last patch. And Pow, he actually sold a Winter Crown earlier to, I believe, buy an Immortality, but he was a bit late to it, so he now has to go back to the Winter Crown. Bottom lane gets dealt with by Super Rival again, and he is able to maneuver down to the tier 2, making it level again. In terms of objectives, Morocco have, you said reset, I say taken over.
18 minutes. It's been 18 minutes already, and the takeover coming from Morocco has been immense. Ayato now has Divine Glaive. So we were talking about timers in the early portion of the game, and now...
Oh,
what
a
happened?
miscalculation! Yanastis! Pops in the Purify, thought he had the time to go for the black shoes.
Didn't have it.
It's okay, Yanastis. It happens to the best of us. Whenever the casters start talking good about you, it just happens. It's a caster curse.
It's a caster curse. MSC,
WI,
M-Series.
everything.
Everything. It's okay.
We apologize, AEC.
But yeah, again, Morocco holding on control. I forgot what I was going to talk about before that happened. You nasties, why'd you gotta die?
He's nasty. He's nasty with it, right? But still, though, I feel like at least when it comes down to the death, it's at the best possible time to die. There's no neutral objectives to contest. There's no possible ways that Tunisia can actually fully punish Morocco with that death.
You're right, you're right. Timers.
Timers.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
We're now in the playing field of Morocco.
We are in their zone. This is the time for Morocco. This is the power spike that we've been talking about ever since the Natan was picked up with the Lilia. They've had amazing clear with the Lilia, with the Natan, but now it's time for them to look for team fights, skirmishes as well. And with them getting back to level on the ground, at least with the neutral objectives, with the structures taken, they're going to have so many more ways to tackle this fight, even with the split pushes, because Super Rival is already in the bottom lane, forcing the slow push build up so that they can go for at least a base turret if they lose out on the Lord.
We rarely get to this point, right? We rarely get to 20 minutes. And so we're going to see how both of these teams work under pressure. And how they work with a macro. But wait a second, what's going on in the top side there?
Defensive flicker, used up already. Albert Rostein rotating
slow.
over. Zaman Force was used up already. Super Rival playing a dangerous game against an alpha there with a Winter Crown. I don't think Super Rival can actually go up 1v1 against Pow, unfortunately, unless he baits out the Winter Crown.
We'll see. He's still adamant, man. He's still adamant. He wants to go in for the push once again. He wants to put in that pressure.
Oh, man.
He knows that it will force Tunisia in an uncomfortable position.
I think at this point for Morocco, they're better off just building a slow push instead of shoving like this. The fact that they keep on shoving means that Tunisia actually have time to rotate. Morocco, they need to slow push bottom lane, rotate over to the Lord, force a fight when Tunisia send a member down below. And that's a man advantage on top of the power spike that they already have. Tunisia gonna go over to the Lord right now as the Terizla's all the way in the bottom lane. Yanasti's gonna be able to finish him off together with the I'm Offended use up earlier. Pow taking a whole lot of the entropy damage. Kaizo will fall. Super Rival comes in the end. And now it is gonna come down to just a full turnaround for Morocco in Casablanca. What a magical night for the Moroccan fans.
That was so well executed by Morocco. Do you not think? I mean, aside from the slow push coming down, they're like, hey, Mirko, we don't need to do that, okay? We'll just wait and counter set up Tunisia. They saw the fact that Super Rival was in the bottom side. They thought that they could blitz it, perhaps have a little bit more of an advantage without a retribution for Morocco. But Morocco say no. Morocco says not today, and they're gonna go for the push. They're gonna go to WEC.
The grab over Pow with a desperate winner crown, buys the immortality in time, and implosion time to perfection by Albert Rostein. It's time for Morocco to shine in the international stage. They qualify to WEC 24 for the first time ever on home soil.
The crowd here in the venue, the crowd here at Casablanca, Morocco, we are feeling that enthusiasm. We are feeling that support. And Morocco come through in a very difficult game, right? 20 minutes, almost went to the 21 minutes, 22 minutes.
It's a late game.
This is one of the longest games I've casted personally here at AEC.
Closest one as well. I think we can safely say that this is the closest, definitely the most fun out of all the matches. You can even see Don Big. he's the caster for the Arabic broadcast, by the way. Left his partner to celebrate with his team, and you cannot blame him for that. You know, obviously feeling just ecstatic. Look at him, they're celebrating on stage, but we have to talk about the highlights first.
Because initially it was everything that Tunisia wanted, right? They were able to pick up more neutral objectives. Super Rival was caught behind. They had a winning lane as well in the gold lane. And we were talking so much about the timers. And maybe they didn't push the gas as fast as they wanted.
Yeah.
And that really allowed for Morocco to come back. But these were moments where these teamfights really was in favor of Tunisia.
It really was. I think all the way in the early game, it's tough to actually fail in the team fights when you're Tunisia because you have such an overwhelming advantage when it comes to the early to mid game. And man, in the skirmish, this was just beautifully played by Morocco. Absolutely outplaying Tunisia, just out-executing them.
Yeah, it was really close though, right? I mean, we didn't expect it to go that close. Can we reveal Dom Big's predictions now?
Yeah.
He said 2-0.
Yeah.
2-0, 2-0.
And he did say game 1, 10 minutes. Which is pretty close.
Yeah.
Game 2, 20 minutes, which is very close.
It was.
The king of prediction, and I think, you know, them on the crowd right now, or the crowd's on them for sure, on stage. Give it up for Morocco, ladies and gentlemen. What a performance, what a comeback.
It was amazing. The implications of how they were able to really stave off that pressure from the early portion of the game up until the point where they can look for that turnaround. You know, personal highlights for me was Yanasti's, Albert as well. Rostein was able to find so many great moments. Super Rival doing his work. Ayato also towards the very end of being able to come back and get that power spike as soon as possible and contribute with the damage. And of course, Kenji. It was amazing stuff. It was great. It was great.
You know, Dom Big was already talking about this team for all the way from day one, right? He came up to us, spoke to us about how he believes in this team, how he thinks for sure Morocco's going to qualify to WEC, and they've done it here. He also said that, you know, for Ayato, give him Claude, give him Harith, and it's GG. But it seems to give him Natan as well, and it's GG. At this point, it's definitely very, very difficult to find a weakness in this Moroccan team. And hey, maybe Egypt or Madagascar can find it, because now we're awaiting the next team that will follow up with Morocco up to the grand finals there to also go together with them to WEC 24 in Riyadh.
But this does mean that Morocco is still on a 9-month win streak, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see whether or not it will change in the grand finals. I think it should be tomorrow or the following day. I'm excited to see that as well. But it looks like that we are going to throw it over to the host. See you guys.
That's a song of victory right there. You hear that?
I don't hear it a lot. Sound of victories. Ladies and gentlemen, to the playoffs of AEC. We got that first match done and dusted with Morocco moving forward, securing that WEC ticket. Now the big question remains, will it be Egypt or will it be Madagascar that will move forward and accompany them all the way to Riyadh to prove their worth?
That's a good question. I think, watching the first series, to be honest, I was expecting a game 3, Eterna. I thought it was going to be really close, and then I guess that's how close these games can be at this point in the playoffs. It's a condensed format, obviously, and now that we're here day 1 of the playoffs, you already have one grand finalist basically going to WEC, which is great. Now for this, of course, I think Egypt coming into this. Let's be honest, a lot of us, that's what we predicted. I mean, it's there on the ISF pages as well, but I think this is a good opportunity too to see what Madagascar is all about, because their run from the online qualifiers and what they've done actually during the group stages here has been quite impressive. And I think it's a team that maybe a lot of people didn't have too many expectations of. And, to be fair, like, you haven't seen them in a lot of these tournaments, obviously, going through. So, and they're up against a Goliath of a team with experience, right? So that's what we can put into perspective here.
I agree. It's going to be very interesting to see what Madagascar has to show for us today. I haven't really had a chance to cast for them, actually. So I'm not really sure as to the roster of Madagascar. Maybe you can shed some light on that later on. But what we do know, once again, very similar to match number 1, right? It's Egypt being number 1 in their groups as compared to Madagascar, who are number 2 in their group. So it's a number 1, number 2. So far, it's kind of still the same outlying pattern, right? The number 1s are the ones that get to move forward.
Going forward, yeah.
But definitely, anything can happen. Once again, I think an opportunity like this, and at a tournament at the scale of this, there's a lot of room for creativity, and there's a lot of room for shock factors. And I'm hoping we get to see that from Madagascar today, because we definitely got a shock from Egypt the last time around. You guys actually got to cast that, you and Mirko.
I know what you're talking about.
And I was at home, right? I was on the way as well, and I was.
You were at home, but on the way.
Yeah, I was like on home to on the way. See, I had to like cut it short because I had to get to the venue. Thanks for pointing that out, Nasu. Nasu. No, what happened to my
I know
accent?
what you mean. I know what you mean.
But yeah, Zilong.
You were surprised, yeah.
What else? Argus.
Argus
So,
Inspire.
Would you expect for those picks to show up once again here from Egypt?
I don't think so, unless there's like we called it a curveball with like a double-edged sword on it. Basically, it's like and I think part of it is you kind of have to wonder, like, okay, are they going to do something like that? I think in this situation, no. And I think part of that has to do with just some insider info. Like I talked to Egypt as well. And no, they said that, obviously at this point in time too, you really want to bring your best to the table for the drafts. Now, I did hear that doesn't mean they might not have one, kind of unorthodox hero that is thrown into the composition. But the way that I look at it is, if it's in the game, everything is for the taking. Like, you might if you want to go with an interesting composition that some people might be like, wow, this is completely not like the meta that we usually see in competitive, the landscape here. It's in the game. Make it work.
I mean, everyone thought that you were crazy when you kept talking about the Gourd.
That's true.
Right? And at some point, Gourd came back into the meta. It was a really big, hot pick as well.
Yeah.
So you're right. Nothing is too crazy. Nothing is too out of the box, especially with the current meta that we're in right now. I honestly feel like it's very flexible.
I will add this because I mentioned insider info, right?
Yeah.
This is also what I had an opportunity to do yesterday. It was actually speak to some of the players from Madagascar, right? So I had the opportunity to talk to them. They came for dinner and they sat at the table and we were actually
so
talking.
sweet.
Yeah, so that those are the opportunities that we get, of course, when we get to hang out with the players and talking to them. It was really interesting to see where their kind of like headspace was at for this tournament. And a lot of that is just, number one, the opportunity that they have here to actually compete. Number two, it's like a group of friends coming together and playing Mlbb. I think that's always the thing that kind of amazes me, especially when we're talking about ISF and the opportunities that they give, these players, like these amazing players. just a platform to basically compete. And they felt the same way. Like the players from Madagascar were telling me, like, this is, you know, they're, of course, like one of their first international competitions to take part in. And pick-wise, I'll leave it to the draft to see what they do. But then I'll go into it because they were asking specifically about drafting picks. So I want to know if that little conversation that we had yesterday, if it plays a part in this.
Okay, we'll see. I mean, let us know when it does show up.
Okay.
All right, okay. So we'll get to the drafts first, ladies and gentlemen. Our first game, our first draft in this best-of-3 series between Egypt as well as Madagascar. We do see that the Moskov and the Valentina and the Julian have been banned out by Egypt, alongside with Madagascar taking away the Hayabusa and the Jushin. Again, one of my main questions is whether or not the Zask will finally come out to play. We haven't seen it too much. Even if the Jushin is banned or even if it is open, like the Zask is open, we don't see it being a high priority pick in the mid lane.
What do you think that is? Like, why?
I don't know.
It's so different here, right? Because we're, like, at least in our regions that we see a lot of the times, it's so priority.
Insta pick.
Why is that the case here? I'm wondering if it's just a case of they haven't had as much time to maybe just practice it, you know, when it did come to the meta, or maybe they just don't prefer it at all.
That's a big question, right? Because technically we're living in a world where assassins are so dominant, right? And a hero like Zask, the fact that you can have a really good time in lane, as well as be very difficult to pick off from assassins, is just so high value.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see it later on. I mean, for now, we do know that Egypt have preferred the Roger. They're going to be picking up first. And the Roger is great, right? The Roger is really great. Flex as well. You can flex the Roger in the gold lane. You can flex it into the jungle. Sometimes we do see a Harith being picked up alongside the Roger, so that's definitely a pick that we should be looking out for. Unless, of course, Madagascar pick up the Harith here with the Ling.
Oh, I don't know. Like, I would actually like them to see the Zask, like, pick it up with the Ling, you know, go that route. But they already picked this up. Also, too, what we're used to seeing is when a Ling is prioritized, there's an Angela. You know, the whole Angela-Ling combo does actually still work really well. But Ruby's been, time and time again, really, I would say, like, the go-to pick for being flexible. For the most part, you are going to see her being placed in the roam, but we've seen her in the gold. We've seen her in the XP. So I like this because both teams have one of these flexible heroes that, you know, the Roger, you don't 100% know is going to go in the gold lane or the jungle as well. They snag up the Zask. Okay.
Thank you, Egypt.
There it is.
Thank you.
I don't know. You know, I think it's, again, I'm sitting here wondering why it's left open so much or it's not just picked up at all. But Egypt's going to go ahead and draft it in. So their first phase looking really solid. Again, they have a good front line with Terizla. You can't go wrong with Terizla. He's just so tanky inherently. Then you have the Roger, of course, that is going to be providing a lot of that physical damage already. And then Zask. Like, now you have to have an answer for the Zask. And Madagascar is going to go ahead and pick up a fair miss here. So, I don't know. How are you feeling about the first phase for Madagascar?
For Madagascar in particular, I think there's still room for flex. Right?
For the Ruby?
Madagascar, for the Ruby. Because technically, the flex is kind of hindered a little bit. I guess for Ruby in particular, we think of it as 3 flex lanes. But against the Terizla, you might not want to put the Ruby against the Terizla. It's not exactly a winning lane against the Terizla, but it still can be placed into the gold lane or the roam. And if they're looking for a little bit more prio in, I would say, these team fights, especially with the Faramis being picked up as well, that additional HP bar coming out from the Nether Realm would be great for the team fights. And I think the Ruby does set up quite well for it. It also does kind of put a big question over to Egypt. Do you want to use heroes like the Harith? Do you want to go for heroes like Assassins as well? Technically, the Nolan is still open, but against the Ruby, it is going to be a challenge for the Nolan to maneuver in and out of these team fights.
Okay, and as we get through this second phase of the bans, like you mentioned, Harith is going to be taken out of the picture. They'll probably still, I don't know, when you're looking at what's going to be thrown in the jungle because of the fact that Roger is there, that's the power play of Egypt right now. That's kind of like the card up their sleeve. You don't know. They might, depending on this last ban, it's Hylos. That's great. We saw how detrimental Hylos can be in the previous matchup. I think, you know, had one of the best KDAs on the team, but unfortunately they weren't able to win that match, that game number 2 for Tunisia. So Hylos has been great so far for a lot of the teams that do bring him just as a tanky front line, even to be kind of annoying in the jungle. So Clint being the last one here, both gold lane, actually 3 gold lane bans. coming out from Egypt, right? That's the Mozkov, the Carry, and the Clint. So this really narrows down what are the gold lane options. That's why it would be, I don't think it's going to happen, but it'd be crazy if they're just like, yeah, let's go ahead, put Ruby in the gold lane. Like, let's just go with something a little unorthodox and make it work. But because of that, I think with the way the bans went, you're going to see them kind of prioritize something else here and then, you know, just put Ruby where she needs to go.
Yeah.
But on that note, while we wait for this 4th pick to come up here from Madagascar, this is crucial because of the fact that you have a Ling and you have a Faramis. That's Brody. So they had all those gold bans towards them. They pick up a Brody. I don't know how many times we've seen Brody actually in this run in AEC, but it hasn't been many times.
No,
because it's mostly Harith or Claude.
I think this is the first time I've personally seen the Brody. I don't see it come up too often, but with so many bans coming through, I would expect something like the Natan maybe. I guess it's a little bit more risky because the Natan does need a little bit more time to scale and to get to that item power spike. We saw that actually find success, the Natan, in the early match before. But the Brody does have like a finesse to it as well, right?
You know
the Brody
why?
needs to snowball as well.
This is what I was going to reference earlier on.
What?
When I said that I got to speak with the players from Madagascar.
Oh,
the Brody
they were
was,
talking about Brody?
Yeah, so the gold lane here, I was asking him, you know, what are your
Whoa,
picks?
wait.
Whoa, Minsatar and Kufra.
Okay, so, I'm a little bit confused here. I mean, we were talking about Egypt and their unorthodox picks. You were also talking about
This
the
is one of them,
Brody
I guess.
unorthodox pick for Madagascar, but even Egypt are throwing a curveball here. So who's going into the gold lane? Is it a Minsitar gold lane?
Yeah.
Is that what we're looking at? Roger Jungle?
Yeah, that definitely. So either way, you know, when you look at it, Minsatar gold lane has worked for certain teams. I only say certain because it's been very niche. And, you know, if our viewers are watching this, they might recall Philippines. There's a team over there. Benny Cutie has played the Minsatar in the gold lane. He kind of made that a thing. Once he did it, you saw it happen around the world a little bit. So this could be that play. And then the answer for the last pick over here for Madagascar is going to be the Minotaur. And that's what I was getting at, too. They needed something to pair up well with the Ruby. Like, you can't just rely on the Ruby to be that front liner for this squad and for this lineup. I know that's also why they went with the Brody pick, because you work with the range. But so they've covered their bases going back to it. And, you know, just to highlight the point with the conversation with them, this is all comfort for them. The Minotaur, the Brody, those are very comfortable things. The Ling, they said they like the Ling, but it's a little too risky. So that's why I want to see how they pull this composition out now that they've drafted the Ling for game 1.
Well, it is still game number 1, right? It's a full best of 3. So if there's any room for experimentation, it's definitely now, right? They want to try and figure out how to win it out against Egypt, a titan like Egypt, and this is definitely the beginning. And very interesting, ladies and gentlemen, as we get into game 1 between both of these teams, Spectre on the Ruby in the EXP lane has actually opted to go for Warcry. So maybe she understands that she's on a losing lane. He understands that he's on a losing lane. And so he needs that additional physical damage coming through. Maybe that's the idea. We'll see whether or not it pays off, because right now it looks like the Terizla is still bullying Spectre there in the EXP lane.
Yeah, I'm almost surprised that Spectre just didn't go with the Brave Smite. Like, go Brave Smite and just make it a dead lane. Like, you know, just sustain as much as you can and keep that lane under control. But maybe Spectre has something else in mind for this. But for the most part, Alpha, being the, you know, experienced veteran player that he is, he's probably going to win that matchup, at least in the lane. So Spectre just going to have to do the best that he can and then hopefully bring that utility over into the game, of course, throughout it. But you can already see early happenings here. Quite low for Shen. Speedy goes in, gets the pull. Tempest Blade's going to be used already from CC. Gets the flicker out from Shen. Shen's going to go back, but no one goes down in the exchange. A lot of action before even the turtle's up. We're still 20 seconds away from it.
Yeah, I would expect that they, for Madagascar in particular, right, they do want to work on the snowball that this Brody can have, right? So they're definitely picking up the tempo here. They're looking for more opportunities because Brody in the early game, I would say 1-2 items already has really good base damage, base physical damage. Usually goes maybe Blade of Heptases and Malefic Roar. I think that's usually the build pattern, the build path for a Brody. So right now he is able to bully Speedy in that gold lane, but now let's center around this next neutral objective. Kenji now level 4, CC level 4. Doesn't look like they want to go for the contest though. Shen.
Yeah. I don't think so. Penalty zone right on top. Birdie's gonna have to flicker out. Turtle secured already, and now the fight for the purple buff gets stunned into the wall. And Kenji's gonna go for more. Goes in under the tier 2 turret to pick up another kill. They're in trouble as Smurf's gonna fall as well. Multiple members from Madagascar falling, and they lose the objective.
I think they also stole the purple buff. Did they?
They did.
I mean, we'll
think
check
so.
later on. It should be the purple buff taken in by Kenji, because CC didn't even use his retribution.
Yeah.
So that's a win-win and a win, right? They
Whole
won on
lot
a
of
team
win.
fight. They won on the turtle, and they also were able to steal that purple buff away from the Ling that, of course, everyone knows a Ling sorely needs. So CC's only working on the orange buff right now. And even Kenji still using that space, using that time to be able to go in for the invade. First item win talker for Kenji, by the way.
Yeah, he's gonna pick that up, and they just want to fight. You're gonna focus in on Birdie. He's gonna be okay. He jumps out of the situation, but this is what happens here with Kenji. When you watch Kenji play, he really likes to get the momentum going. He likes to kind of go toe-to-toe with enemy junglers that he faces off. A lot of times it's also just relying on Shen here like he's been doing. Birdie could be in trouble this time around. He's got the Cooper there. They go in with the Nether Realm. They pull in the Dominator's Descent as well into the turret. Destiny joining the fight. Part of this fight, he's going to go take a brunt of damage already, though. They got to be careful of Kenji's damage. Shen jumps in, gets a huge stun off, and Kenji winning around the corner, goes in with Lycan Pounce. Penalty zone on the response, but it's already a triple. I don't think he's going to be able to catch CC for the Maniac, but he's going to work for it anyway. Does he jump in? Lycan Pounce forward. CC's in trouble. Kenji will go in and pick up the 4th kill there.
Unofficial Maniac.
Unofficial.
Unofficial Maniac for Kenji in the first 4 minutes of the game. And unfortunately, one of the winning conditions for Madagascar in the early portion is to allow Destiny to get to that power spike for him to dominate in his gold lane. But because he participated in the team fight, because he got taken down, that actually allowed Speedy on this Min Sitar to take that tower. And it'll be very difficult, but wait a second.
Kenji getting the objective, already getting the turtle. Dominator's Descent just doing too much damage alongside Kenji as they fight under the tier 1. CC can't do anything but watch as his teams fall in front of him. It's a triple again. Kenji go in, loses the shots though. Will finally get shut down. Tempest of Blade's gonna be used for CC to get out of there, so they get the shutdown. They had to. He's 8-1-1.
CC's like, not today.
Not today.
Not this time. Not 2 times in a row. Triple kill, not able to get that Maniac, and now CC picks up the shutdown, which is great, right? Because CC was falling far behind. He was 2 levels behind of Kenji. The fact that he was able to shut Kenji down in his tracks is amazing. And now he's only lacking in that 1 level EXP gap between himself as well as Kenji. And if we take a look at the items, we do see very interesting things. I mean, right now, we do see that the Zask has opted to go for a little bit more utility, going for the glowing wand. We'll see if it helps, by the way.
Oh, Birdie, that's not gonna help. That's just, and that's why you pick up the Zask. Look how much damage this Zask is doing for the lineup here. Early on, I mean, even if you pick up the Flask or the Oasis at this point for Birdie, I don't know if that sustain is going to be enough. I don't know if the heal is going to be enough to deal with this power spike that is happening for Egypt right now.
Because that's the problem, right? We're talking about timings here. Oh, what?
Timings,
Shen?
throw them out the window because under the tier 2, they're going to find some more kills. Kenji's going to work on the turret, and they just battle it out into the King's Calling, and they get decimated because they can't move through that ultimate from Speedy and just too much thrown at them. But CC will at least go ahead and get the objective in the tier 1 bottom side. But look at Egypt, they're all focused on the top.
We don't even have a Lord yet. It's only been 6 minutes. And what's another pick over onto Smurf? What's going on there?
Oh, they're battling in the base up top. They're just forcing it under that turret, really trying to pick up some more if they can. CC though, Tempest of Blade's gonna be used. Kenji waiting to go in, but he won't be able to. So right now, Egypt, they were really focused on getting a base turret down. They won't get it, but they did get more kills.
That's 3 plus 6, 9k gold lead for Egypt.
Yeah.
Right now, knocking on 10k in the first 7 minutes of the game. It's not even a 1k gold lead per minute. That's how dominant Egypt has been for the first 7 minutes of the game, ladies and gentlemen. And Yeah, photo definitely picked up now from Birdie, but the problem is, even if you have the photo, there's already so much anti-regen items coming through for Egypt. So they're already one step ahead, anticipating, but wait a second.
Penalty zone from Alpha, and look at the damage that's coming through. You can't do anything about it as Alpha picks up a double kill. This is the scaling we were just talking about here at Eterna. It's just too much right now. 10,000 gold ahead. And we asked about the Mincetar. Hey, I think it's working pretty good.
Yeah, the Mincetar speedy. 315 up until this point. He was able to find an amazing King's Calling earlier on for that initiation play for all the rest of the other members to follow up through. And look, it might be this as well.
Jumping in again. Shen goes in with the revenge into the rage. They're going to fight for more. It's already going to be a double. Tempest of Blades comes through. But what can CC do? Look at the damage. It's too much. Alpha goes in with a penalty zone again. Triple. And it looks like that's going to be it for game number 1. Egypt's going to clear out the minions a little bit longer. And that's going to be game 1 for Egypt.
8 minutes. 8 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. That's all they needed to win that in such a dominant fashion. It was insane. How?
Very quick.
Egypt, once again, just being that force, being that titan, even from the open qualifiers now here at AEC, working through the group stage and now into the playoffs, still undefeated so far, still working with the dominance that they have. And it's going to be a big question. How do Madagascar come back from this?
It's tough. I mean, as we look at the highlights here, you know, right off in the beginning of the game, they already had 3 kills at the 3.5-minute mark. And this is something we've been seeing from Egypt. I think, you know, going back to it, what I told Madagascar, the players there, was really, you know, if you want to improve, it's really focusing on that mid-lane trio composition that you have, securing it, especially, and that's why I said the Ling is a great pick. It's always a great pick if you can get an assassin in the jungle. But man, do you have to take care of it. Like, you have to do so much to make sure that your assassin jungler has the time he needs to farm, has the time to be able to rotate around the map, and utilize the assassin pickup. I mean, that's honestly the meta that we're in right now. It's so punishing if you fall behind. I think that's the biggest apparent difference in, you know, what we've been in before this whole patch changed things up like this. And so it's really difficult because, you know, we saw this from Birdie too. Like, Birdie was really struggling. He wanted to do the right things on the Minotaur, but I think it goes back to it too, Eterna. Like, they should have taken the Zask, because I feel like that Zask was stopping the Minotaur in his tracks alone.
I agree.
That was a tough thing to deal with.
See, like, working on your statement earlier on, I think I completely agree with that, right? If you want to use an assassin in the jungle, I think it's very important to have winning lanes.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where things kind of went wrong for this team, right? The fact that they wanted to utilize the Ling for pressure, for kill pressure, but the fact that they lost all the lanes, the fact that they couldn't utilize the winning lanes as well, it made it very easy for Egypt to punish the Ling, very easy for Egypt to go in for invades into the jungle that eventually caused CC on the Ling to fall behind. So going back to this, I think, again, the Zask was important for them to pick up because they needed a winning lane in the mid lane. It was so difficult because technically the Brody should be able to trade against the Mincetar because of the range. But the problem is, we saw Destiny being forced to rotate towards this mid lane to kind of
fight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then essentially Brody also lost the lane.
Yeah.
So supposedly the winning lane that they had, the only winning lane that they had, didn't even become a winning lane for them.
Yeah, very difficult. And again, that's why, you know, I know you and I were on the same wavelength there. We were like, you got to get that Zask.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it wasn't picked up, and so that was a big punishing point to the whole draft and that matchup that you mentioned. Player of the match, though, for match number 1 is going to be Kenji here on this Roger. Was just absolutely insane. 12-1 and 5, 41,000, nearly 42,000 damage. And, you know, like you said, he picked up those items and he was ready to roll. I'm actually surprised that he even picked up some defensive items. You know, he had enough to cover both the physical defense and the magic defense here. But part of that, too, was just because he knew that he was going to take chances on jumping into the fray, especially when you had that combination. I was trying to think of a name for it. It's like the King's Zone, or because it's like penalty zone with King's Calling, you know what I mean? So like when both those ultimates are dropped down and they're in this like circular area, that's so much to deal with. It's already difficult enough to get out from a penalty zone, but imagine layering it with a Mincetar ultimate, the King's Calling. Like, then what do you do?
You just stand there.
You just stand there and
Just stand there and
accept your
suck it up.
fate. I guess so.
It's difficult. I want to look back onto the spells.
They had some, there was
Right.
one Purify
On
and there was
Smurf
a couple
only.
Yeah. But
Because
that's what I'm saying.
technically on a Brody, wait, Brody can go Purify, right?
Technically you can, but I think in
Oh
this...
no, you can't. You can't. You have to go Flicker as
well,
a Brody, right?
You want the Flicker. I was going to say, like, if you really wanted to risk it, you could go. You could do whatever you want. You can take Flame Shot if you want. You know what I mean? Like, but...
Hey.
that's where I was going with it. But you have to take Flicker also in the matchup because part of it is, what if you get caught by the Spirit Glory from Insitar? And then you get pulled into him. So all you have is you got the stun. You can use the second skill, but also you have to flicker, and that's about it. So, but I think you already pointed out the biggest weak point of the Brody was the fact that he had no choice but to go and join the fights because they were losing. That especially in the mid lane.
Yeah, because even the timings of the Brody, they were good, right? He had an early Blade of Heptases already, so that was already on the way to the power spike. Usually after that, he goes for Malefic Roar, and he was on the way. It's just at that point they were falling too far behind. He couldn't go for the farm as well because his tower was taken out by Mr. Speedy Man.
By Mr. Speedy Man. So let's say this: after seeing that, how does Madagascar adjust? This is an 8-minute game. It's very it's very hard to come back from something like this, and it's an absolute dominant game for the opposing team. So like Madagascar, what do you think they need to do here? They are going to be on the blue side as we get to this Game 2 draft. So what is this? Don't tell me it's like, I don't think it's Zask is the first pick answer.
I mean, they could
Go for Jushin.
or that,
It's
right?
not, it's banned. Sorry.
Okay.
It's banned now.
Well, yeah, this is a kind of a benefit for Madagascar, right? Because being on blue side, you can go for a little bit more flexibility with the bans. You don't have to go for the prio bans. But it looks like Madagascar here actually going for the Hayabusa and the Zas ban, so they're not going for a trade. Maybe they're not comfortable picking it up. Maybe that's why, right? Because in the first game, they had the opportunity to pick it up, but they didn't.
They didn't.
And so now they're going to ban it out. They saw the gravity of a Zask in the mid lane. Maybe it's just not something that they want to work with.
That's why I threw that question at you. I was like, I wonder why specifically in the AEC, when we're so used to seeing a Zask be a priority, that it's not being picked up. And maybe it is just one of those cases where, we just don't like playing it here. And so part of that, once again, going back to the game plan, especially since the Jushin's banned out, what are you left to do here? And I think, maybe even if it's open, pick up the Iesf. I think this is like one of the most standard heroes that you can pick up right now to take a first pick on the blue side, unless, once again, it's all about risk. Like, if you're just trying to risk things, then pick up one of those assassin junglers that are going to be left, because they already banned out the Roger, the Hayabusa, the Ling is gone. Like, what is left in those jungle options, for you to take up? I think also the Hylos, if this is left open, it might be worth taking, because Hylos is crazy right now. He's just crazy frontline, crazy utility, and usually is really difficult to kill. So those are left on the table here for Madagascar.
I agree. I think Hylos has benefited so well with the change of items, right? Clock of Destiny and the Thunder Belt. But is it first pick worthy?
Well, Chip's first pick worthy.
Chip is first pick worthy. But, I mean, we've shared the sentiment. We also share the same sentiment about the Chip. The fact that in certain situations... Wait, what? I don't even want to talk about the Chip anymore. I want to talk about this Granger. We haven't seen a Granger for so long. Is this a Granger jungle? Is that what we're seeing right now from Egypt? The curveballs, man.
Yep, it's going to be... If it is, which I'm assuming it is, it's
Wow.
going to be a MOBA Kenji.
Okay.
That's where we're going.
See... Granger in the jungle is very high risk, high reward in my opinion, right? If you can snowball on a Granger, amazing. But the problem with a Granger in the jungle is that it's so punishable.
Yeah.
So against assassins in the jungle, it will be a challenge. And it looks like the Julian and the Lunox have been picked up. Assuming that this Julian is going to the jungle, Lunox mid lane.
And so the way that works, the Julian with the Lunox, all they have to do, Julian just has to get that Genius Wand. Lunox can go whatever first item that you really want to. There's a couple of variations there. But then that's enough damage already to get rid of the Granger. If he's caught. Because again, Kenji going off the game that we just saw him play, he played it nearly perfect. And part of that, once again, is going to the mid lane prio combination that they have, the way that they rotate. So Madagascar is great. But, you know, before you were bamboozled by the Granger like I was, the chip is the same thing. This is what we always have to point out. Anytime that it's brought up in the draft, it's a great pick. Utility's amazing, but it can also backfire on you. And I think that's really when you look at the chip pick here from Madagascar, that's number one. Shortcuts are amazing, but don't forget that the enemy team can go through the shortcut too, and it could cause a lot of havoc in the team fights if they're not ready, right? So I think if they want to play around with this first phase that they've already went through, you have to start to ask, okay, what are we going to put in the XP lane, right? Because right now, it's going to be a little bit difficult on how they deal with that. XP lane has to be someone durable, at least tanky enough, and even gold lane, like that is one of the things. We have seen Lunox in the gold lane too. That has happened. Not sure if that's going to happen here, but I think that's the flexibility that Madagascar is playing around with and their strength right now. This is another, I don't even call them curveballs anymore. Like we're batting the left field at this point. This is a Eudora.
I don't know what to feel about
Analyze the Eudora pick for me, please.
Technically, the Eudora is great level 2, I would say. Level 2, level 3. Because once you get her first skill and her second skill down, that early game kill pressure that you have could be expensive. Yeah, that's how I feel about the Eudora. Man, this is confusing me, honestly. I haven't seen a Eudora in a very long time.
In a long time.
Technically, she does have AoE stuns as well to work with.
Didn't we see her in just recently? Maybe in a wild card event? I think we saw Eudora once.
Oh, I
think I was casting with Mirko. I was casting with Mirko. I'm pretty sure we saw
maybe.
Eudora once, and we had the same reaction.
So I'm actually curious to see how this works. Maybe it's great to help the Granger in the jungle as a mode of defense. But in the long run, the lack of range that the Eudora... Oh my god, it's a Popol and Koopa. What am I even doing here? How do we analyze this?
What did you ask before game number 1? Like, are we going to see another draft?
Yeah, unorthodox picks coming through. And I guess the answer is yes.
Okay, but I will say this is more meta-ish than what we saw.
At least the roles make sense.
Yes.
Right?
It's not a Xylong and a Argus. We'll put it out there that way, right? It's not that. But it's still interesting because, yeah, like Granger actually still can work. I feel like in a lot of the meta compositions right now, it can still work. Eudora is like, your whole job there is just to get a numbers advantage, right? It's like her burst is probably one of the best burst combinations in the game right now. And then, I don't know, I agree with you that when the Popol and Koopa came up, I'm like,
here's the thing.
He's a tower destroyer. That's about it.
That and visibility, right?
Traps.
That's what one of the advantages of a Popol and Koopa has. And technically, the Popol and Koopa is working against a chip.
Yeah.
Right? So vision around these bushes are going to be very important. And maybe that's what Egypt are kind of working with. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we get into it, game number 1 between Madagascar and Egypt. The ticket to WEC, the ticket to get into the grand finals, it's here, and it starts here as well. What a great way to start things off with all these picks coming through, all these debut picks coming through. And it's going to be exciting to see how this actually pans out.
Okay. It's down to this. Egypt match point. They'll secure their slot going forward, of course, alongside the home team, Morocco, that we saw earlier on. And with the lineup that they have, I think, you know, what you can really chalk this up to is Egypt kind of showing how flexible they can be to take some of these lineups and make them work. Shen's going to take quite a bit of damage himself. Has to flicker out, but good thing the enhanced chains didn't, you know, throw him into the air, because if they did, that would have been a first blood to Madagascar.
Exactly. Egypt will require a little bit more time as well, I believe, especially in the mid lane. One of the things that we didn't point out about the Eudora is that she has horrible wave clear. It's so difficult for her to clear lane. The fact that she's paired up with a Cho, it does help in a way, right? The Cho should be able to clear, especially he picked up the emblem as well. He has the concussive blast with him, so hopefully it can aid in that venture. But against, what's going on in the mid lane there? Looks like some damage trading.
Oh, Shen's going to be going for the first blood. Kenji will pick it up. CC's in trouble. The Death Sonata already picking up a kill here for Kenji, and it's good to see Granger in the jungle again.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Madagascar have actually figured out a way to punish this Granger, who is notoriously known to be very weak and vulnerable in the jungle. So now Egypt, they do have a great footing in the early stage of the game. 1k gold lead, they should be able to pick up this neutral objective as well. And it doesn't matter that Shen's there. Madagascar are in no way to posture for an exchange of this utility objective.
Yeah, and the utility or the objectives that they want to focus on here, that's kind of got to be the mindset for them in the early game. And as at the same time is like not getting picked off, because anytime you have a Cho across from you, that's their game plan. Shen, go find someone, kick them to me, just like that. So as I say it, Brilliance is going to be popped. Shen holds on a little bit longer, is giving that vision. But look at that. That's what I was saying about the Pobo and Koopa too. He's a turret destroyer. He already got the tier 1 down in the bottom lane.
I think he's going first item VOD as well. We saw the double Legion sword in his items. So he's going full in attack mode. And if you take a look at the placement of his, what? CC, Alpha taken down?
Good pickup here. Smurf. Birdie was going in too. They already dropped the shortcut. Spectre also going to take it. I think they just want the turret. Shen's here to help them out, back them up. But it's only him and Kenji. They're going to force them back with the Blazing Duet too. Shen still half health, looking for the jump. And they pick up the kill on Destiny. Shen still holding on to that Way of the Dragon, but I don't think he's going to be able to find CC. Egypt will go ahead and stop that push from Madagascar.
Absolutely. And now Speedy's actually rotating towards his top side, looking to pick up that gold for himself. And again, the trap placement has been detrimental, the vision, but wait a second.
That's a kill right there. Oh, he has the shield, and Joki will go in with the flicker to pick it up and clean it up. Smurf jumps in with the Chaos Bolts. They're there. There's the damage. There's the response. But now CC could be in trouble. Kenji also going to line up the shots and will take CC down. Everybody coming in just a little bit too late from Madagascar.
Egypt are coming in hot as well, right? Madagascar are a little bit late. Egypt, they're coming a lot hotter as well. And it looks like, Destiny?
Destiny, I don't think you're going to be able to escape that one.
No.
Again, Alpha, man. He's been on point with the Yuzhong.
Absolutely. 3-1-1 so far. He has a Brave Smite with him as well, so he is looking for a little bit more of sustainability. And later on in these team fights, that's going to be very difficult for Madagascar to deal with. And look at Kenji, no!
Oh no. CC gonna try to pop and weave, escaping the dragon. I think he's gonna be okay, but unless Joki goes in with a stun and drops the combo down on CC. And that's what I was talking about, that damage from the combination from Eudora. It's so difficult to withstand that, especially if you're already at a third of the health, or even if you just lost a fourth of your health, you're most likely going to get bursted down. Birdie, though, going to get caught off, went into his own portal through death, and will get decimated in the jungle. Now tier 1 in the mid lane going to be worked on next, as Egypt looks for more resources still on the map to take. Purple buff is up, but I think they're just going to go ahead and run it down mid a little bit longer. That's what we're talking about. This lineup is meant to push.
It's meant to push, and it's meant to be for Egypt. I just realized, right? Because thinking back to how Egypt liked to play again.
Okay, he didn't land that kick in
Oh,
the right direction.
that was so close, though. That was so close. But back to that point, right? Egypt are a team that loves to brawl.
Yeah, they are.
And what better way to brawl than with a Eudora? The fact that you have a point and click stun, the fact that you can facilitate all these dives coming through with the Destinata following it up as well on the Granger, it's just perfect early game damage that Egypt are currently utilizing right now. So in the grand scheme of things, it didn't make sense to us in the draft.
Yeah.
But according to Egypt's playstyle, the way that they're utilizing it, it does make sense. I mean, look at this again.
You're going to force it once again, going in. Possibly the Dragon form, going to find his own setup, but they don't commit to it. They just want to push them off with the turret. Alpha is already quite tanky in that form, so they get the tier 2. Top side already going to be down. Egypt might be looking for more. You still have Kenji on the bottom side. Birdie gets the stun, drops the shortcut as he's taken out of the picture very quickly. Smurf gets deleted by Kenji as he goes through the portal, looking for Spectre. Body Smith going to keep him up. Destinata dropped down, but won't pick up the kill.
Oh!
Destiny! One hit away, and he'll pick it up. Kenji is on fire.
He's more than that. He's destroying. He's not just on fire, but he's also burning his enemies in his tracks right now. Egypt are playing this so brilliantly, and to make it all worse, Kenji now has a BOD to boot. 504 so far. He's dealing that damage, and look at this, another pick that Shen is looking for. Doesn't commit the Wave Dragon though.
Wow. That's just how much damage Egypt's lineup is throwing at him mid-turret. 7 and 11 minutes in. 7-11 already taken down a base turret. Do they push any further? The waves are already going to be pushing up top too. CC goes in, has the damage on Speedy, will be able to pick up the kill, but now will get kicked into the wall and taken down in response. Egypt down Speedy only. They might look for more unless they call it off. Turtle's still up, all the buffs here, and it looks like they're just going to give him a show across the wall to each other.
Flickered.
Goes in. I think he's joking around. They go in with a stun. There it is. That's the damage as Birdie falls. Too much thunder in the base.
It's insane. It's insane how Egypt are performing right now. And it looks like they're going to be able to pick up another turret in the top side. Kenji, the one zoning. What is that damage, my guy? Enough to... Oh, Shen goes in.
Shen goes in with Zone Way the Dragon, waiting for the follow-up. He's like, hey, guys, I'm here. But they don't get it. They just get that turret. That's 2 now already. 8 minutes, 15 seconds in. Knockups from the hands. Chains, there's a huge penalty zone. Gonna be able to find 2. Joki's the one to fall. And Alpha. Madagascar trying to turn it around. Shortcut, drop down. Speedy waiting on the whim. Smurf falls though. They should be able to catch Speedy. Speedy goes out from there using the flicker. And Madagascar will be able to find a couple kills.
And now things are getting more intense, right? Because technically Madagascar, in the 8 minutes here, in 9 minutes, sure they've been shut down, but they've still been able to clear out these lanes. The fact that if, let's say, they go in and are able to pick up those power spikes, and if Madagascar are able to get a full 5v5 team fight, a proper 5v5 team fight, little similar to what we saw before, then it could be a problem for Egypt. Because what Egypt has is a wonderful composition for pickoff. They have so many single target heroes. They have the Cho, they have the Eudora as well, but when it comes down to a 5v5, we have penalty zone coming in from Spectre, and we also have that AoE damage coming in from CC, as well as Destiny and the Blazing Duet, and we saw that being a problem. So now Egypt, they also need to be very careful if they do want to close this off.
I think it's like the thing we always have to kind of like look out here too. Here, we're gonna take a breather here. Is the point of like, even though they had that minor win, you know, with the last team fight that they had from Madagascar, and you saw them get a couple kills, it was mostly on the point of Egypt being very confident, you know, with the lead that they had, and you know, they're flickering forward, they're just kind of going forward, doing these things like that is going to get punished eventually, you know, and for Madagascar, that's what they have to do. Like if Egypt is doing that, punish them, get some of that gold, especially the bounties that are there for them. And I think once they start to scale up the lineup that they have, they can win those team fights if they get to that point, right? So jumping back into the game, I just don't think they're going to be able to compete for the objectives, especially when we're talking about Destiny being 0-3 in the Claude right now. He needs so much more time to build up. So a lot of what we're seeing here at Eterna is just them relying on the magic damage.
And not just that, right? Wait a second, Shen.
Shen going to go in, Way the Dragon, find the mark on target. They go in a little bit further. Dragon Form going to be used too. It's already going down. Shortcut going to be used. Enhanced Chains is going to find Kenji though, but everybody in the base is in trouble as 2 members are already down, and they might be chasing CC here. Speedy gets knocked up with the Enhanced Chains, and there's the Crash Course too, but CC will fall and Smurf, and it's a wipeout as Madagascar is taken out of the game. And Egypt, do they have enough to push it in? 2 seconds away for Spectre. I don't think he's going to be enough as Egypt works on the base, and that'll get them to the grand final and also locking in their slot to the WEC.
GG, well played from Egypt again with an unorthodox draft, with an unconventional way to play the game. They proved themselves worthy, and they proved themselves capable of going all the way into the grand finals and all the way to Riyadh. So it's confirmed. We now know, our 2 teams that will move forward to WEC. But I gotta say, the grand finals are going to be intense.
I can't wait to see them play, right?
Me
Egypt
too.
and Morocco again, and for the grand finals. Of course, at that point, they're just battling for that first and second, you know, the slots there. Of course, that comes with the pride money, but also just the pride of being #1 for this. And you know, as we take a look at the highlights, it's going to be very similar to what we saw in game #1. It was just this time around, it's, you know, a little bit different lineup that they decided to go with for this game too.
Oh, by the way, we are still going to be seeing from Tunisia, right? As well as Madagascar.
Yeah, they'll play tomorrow.
Should be
Yeah.
for the third place match.
Battle for third, yep.
So we're gonna see that tomorrow. But back into the highlights, I don't really know what to say, right? The drafts alone kind of left us wordless, right? Speechless. We didn't really know what to say. But after we looked at how they executed it, after we saw the way that they played, it made sense. Again, right? This team, Egypt, they are such an aggressive team. They are a team that always looks for fights. They're a team that likes to go in very dirty in the early game. And so the composition that they brought really just did adjust well with them, right? Jockey on the Eudora, Kenji as well. Shen was also looking for opportunities, baiting a lot of the resources as well. We saw Smurf had to pop out her ultimate as well, and that actually allowed and facilitated a lot of the kills that were placed onto him. So it was overall just great chemistry, a great read, and just amazing execution in the game.
Yeah, they did it really well. And again, when we're talking about Egypt here, this is almost expected because of how much experience they have as a team. And when they're up against a team like Madagascar here, you know, they're going to do this. They're going to take some of these risks and some of these chances. And it is good that Madagascar did find some of those moments where they were punishing them. But I think with this lineup, especially with the Claude in the hands of Destiny here, you just, like, Claude by default, no matter who you are as a player, takes time to build up. Like, you really do need those 3 items locked in before you start to have a big impact here. And that's why I was saying, you know, with the lineup that they brought, Julian and the Lunox, in theory, it's great. You work around all that magic damage, but then that's kind of all you have, you know, for the whole time until the Claude built up here. So, interestingly enough, player of the match going to be Shen here. What a performance on that Cho pick.
Yeah, he was, again, so great at building moments, right? He was able to bait out resources time and time again. I think we mentioned that in the highlights. And the fact that they utilized a Cho with Concussive Blast to help with the wave clear was also very important, I think, for their rotations. Because, again, Eudora, wave clear sucks. It's not great at all. Even compared to, you know, Zask and Jushin, I think Eudora still falls short. So, final words, Naisu?
It was a great day, and congratulations to the teams.
So we'll see you tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, for more Mlbb action at AEC. Bye-bye, guys. See you soon.